How are you doing today? My name is Bailey, aka the Progressive Conservative. I believe that we can make progress through the conservation of our founding liberal ideas in America. It is June 17th, and we have a lot to get to, so let's get going. Today, I want to begin with a trend that's going around a little bit on TikTok. Now, this trend is a lot of women, typically white women, who are crying, and then suddenly the beat drops, and they stop crying, and as you'll see in this TikTok, apparently the point is to be convincing. Let's get going and just watch it right away.
Hey, look, they took my last video down for hate speech, so I'm not going to say anything. All I'm going to say is, under that sound, there's a bunch of videos of white women who are crying. And then when the beat drops, they stop crying, right? And the challenge is to show how convincing that performance was. I'm not going to say anything. All I'm going to say is, right? I'm not going to say anything. Right. Right.
Alright, there you go. So, the reason I bring this up is because I think this is exactly what's going on. It's virtue signaling. So many people are faking it, like they care so much about all these problems that are going on, when in reality they're either just trying to fit in, they don't want to be othered, and they know that if they don't show their moral support, and yeah, I am going to equate it to kind of like fake crying. You're fake empathizing. Oh, look at how emotional I am, and then you walk away and suddenly those emotions are gone. It's fake. I don't know if you guys have ever really done much research into the history of North Korea, but this is a horrific communist regime, and I highly recommend you listen to some of Michael Malice's talks on this awful, awful place. He is one of the most informative people on that country that there is out there. He's actually been to it, and that alone is saying something. Now, the reason I bring that up is I believe this is where I heard the story from, but it was a story about a man who was a full believer of the ideology there. Full believer. And he noticed one day, I believe it was after the first communist leader died or someone important had died, and everyone in this town, like, hall is crying, or the gathering. They're mourning, they're grieving. And although he is a full believer in the regime, in communism, he looks around and he realized at that moment that if he didn't cry hard enough, it would be evidence that he was the other and that he could get killed. Who knows what could have happened if he didn't cry and show his support through his emotions. That's what's going on here, and I like that this guy's trying to call out. Of course, it's not hard to portray all those ideas in a single TikTok, and I don't think that this woman is crying because she's a part of a communist regime, but people don't get that. Although those terms get thrown around a lot, communist, fascist, Nazi, all those big words that people just kind of throw out to be an insult at the other, people don't get that. All it is just ideologies. The same way that people criticize, and I think rightfully so, uber fundamental Christians, it's just an ideology. And if you truly believe an ideology, if it is embedded the way that Robin DiAngelo claims whiteness is embedded, whatever your ideology is, everyone has something, pretty much. I think if you don't, you just have a very, very makeshift moral framework, and I think even then, as you grow up, you're going to form some sort of ideology, because I think it's just how you figure out the best way to live in the world is. Your brain has to do something to figure out, how do I conduct myself so I don't die in society? It might be as simple as I need to grow and make food because I need to eat. That's if your life is so hard that that's what you have to do. But when you live in America and everything is so abundant and you have a grocery store down the street, everything, you can Uber Eats at 2 a.m. Everything is so easy. It's harder to have a clear path and a clear idea of where you're supposed to be going. And so that's why we were seeing these kind of ideologies taking over. It was Nietzsche who predicted this in the 1800s, that as people lost religion, the thing that was giving them that purpose and that path that they were supposed to be going down, they would turn to nationalism and these ideologies, equality, equity above all, because people finally feel like the way they see the world, I'm just fair for everyone, I'm equal, I treat people equally. But what they don't realize is that these ideas have been tried and they don't work. Enough on that, though. I want to go to a different thing about women. You may have heard, oh, apologies there, but Victoria's Secret is rebranding. They're no longer going to have the angels. They're going to rebrand and use lesbians and some other women like Megan Rapinoe. You see, fantastic women's soccer player. I don't think she's ugly. I wouldn't say she's attractive, like overly. She's just another woman. I don't know how old she is. I mean, I'm not super attracted to her, and I think she's a lesbian anyway, so it doesn't matter. Point being, though, Victoria's Secret is definitely giving up the idea of using angels, some of the most beautiful women in the world, and they say they want to use women who are successful. They've done something. Victoria's Secret swaps angels for what women want. Will they buy it? The embattled lingerie giant is attempting the most extreme brand turnaround in recent memory in an effort to redefine not just itself, but also the very idea of what sexy is. Okay. Talked about this a little bit the other day when it was about fat phobia, and I said how men, sexy is a pretty big variety. Yes, the idea of unrealistic body image, which the Victoria's Secret angels clearly are the pinnacle of unrealistic body image. Men don't look at that and just go, all right, the only sexy I will ever see is that. This is it. If a woman isn't this tiny little, almost impossible to achieve Victoria's Secret angel level of beautiful, then she's not sexy. No, that's not true. Men are attracted to a large variety. But can we agree that there is an objective idea of the most beautiful women in the world? When they are saying they want to use successful women, well, you know what that's basically saying is, you know what, there's some people out there who all their success comes from their beauty. Models, many actresses, as we'll get to a story in a little bit. But this is, and I'm not saying it's necessarily good, but I think a woman, like on OnlyFans, should be allowed to use her beauty and her femininity to have a career. So now you're going to basically say if you're beautiful, you also have to be extremely successful. What if that's not the case? I basically think that when you look at Victoria's Secret angels, they are supposed to be the hyper minority of women, the most beautiful women in the world. I don't think, and I think you should be, if I had a child, teach them. It's not expected of you to look like this. It's not gonna happen. Just like I'm sure Megan Rapinoe would argue it's not expected of every woman to be a great soccer player. Because wanna know what? It's impossible. Not every woman is gonna be as capable as Megan Rapinoe is at soccer, even if they practice really hard. And now it kind of falls apart because I believe you could probably get better at soccer than you could be beautiful. It's easier to get better at soccer in a skill than it is to suddenly become beautiful. And so maybe they have a slight point saying that beauty, because you're born with it, it's something that we shouldn't be flaunting. But I mean, what? How is, like, evolution over the course of hundreds of thousands of years has made us beautiful. And the whole idea is that we are attracted to things that are beautiful. It's throwing away the idea of being a human a little bit. You can call me hyperbolic for saying that, but by saying we're not going to acknowledge the beauty of women and we're frankly going to diminish it by not using them, by saying we have to be equal by showing lesbians, I'm happy if I think we should show more people. I think we should use more models that are not just the unrealistic body image. But to take them away, I think is a bit much, personally. I said I had another story, though, about how actresses are oftentimes used for their beauty. Well, yes, and I actually agree with Scarlett Johansson right here. Scarlett Johansson criticizes hypersexualization of Black Widow in Iron Man 2. Actor says her character was talked about like a possession in her first appearance in the Marvel film franchise. Alright, firstly, yes, Scarlett Johansson is absolutely gorgeous. One of the most beautiful actresses, in my opinion, in the world. But I agree with her here. I remember watching Iron Man 2, and I kind of was confused. I mean, I liked her character, this badass spy that was capable of taking down all these guys, but was also just kind of this like sexy report, but it felt really forced and weird. And then when she kind of continued being a character in the series, I was like, so what happened there? She came in, seduced Iron Man, and then just was done. And suddenly, like, she's on the team with him, and they kind of forget that she was doing that to him. You could argue that he just put it behind him, Tony Stark saying, you know what, like, she was a spy, she just had to get close to me. But it always felt very strange, and I didn't quite like the directing choice to make her that sexual if they were going to continue using her in the future. Though, of course, isn't it like one of the opening scenes of the first Avengers is her with the super tight leather and low-cut top? I mean, they're always going to sexualize her, and that is kind of unfortunate. But you know what? Did they not sexualize Captain America when he first comes out of the pod where he became Captain America? And the woman, I don't think they actually showed her, if I remember the story correctly, wasn't Peggy. That's her name in the movie. I'm pretty sure the actress who played Peggy, like, didn't see, not Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans shirtless, and so when she was like, oh, I'm like, kind of fuss, it was genuinely her being a woman attracted to an extremely fit guy, but is that not kind of sexualizing him? I'm not trying to equate the sexualization of women, and especially in Iron Man 2, because it was over the top with the sexualization of Chris Evans. I'm fine with both, to be honest. I respect the fact that there's attractive men and attractive women, and if they're going to put in the work, because it's not like either Scarlett Johansson or Chris Evans got to have either of those bodies without doing anything. Let's keep going, though. Now we have another famous woman. It's a little bit separate from the feminine side, but this is so effed up. Billie Eilish comes under fire for mocking Asian accents and saying a word I will not repeat in a resurfaced video. She did a naughty. Now, this is just a stupid story because it's dumb. I hate this world where we have to walk on eggshells and every little video we ever post might come back to us in 40 years and we're going to be canceled because of something dumb. Now, it's Billie Eilish. Nothing's going to happen to her. She's too big and famous now. Her fans are still going to follow her. I mean, maybe she'll lose a couple. But one thing here, she apparently got in trouble, I was unaware of this, for what they say is queer baiting. So, in her Lost Cause video, the singer 19 frolics with her female pals at a party and puts on an animated display, sticking out her tongue while they all pose. Urban Dictionary defines queerbaiting as a marketing technique used to attract queer viewers that involves creating romantic or sexual tension between two same-sex characters but never making it canon or evolving on it. So, the reason that I think this is a little bit ridiculous is the idea of queerbaiting, and Billie Eilish in particular. So, looking at this, what is Billie supposed to do here? You say you want us, as straight people, apparently, to be respectful and be aware, and you want to be accepted into culture as an LGBTQ community. Alright, fine. I accept you. If you show me respect, I'll show anyone respect. I'll call them whatever they want. I don't really care. I'm just here to exist like they are. But, so, like, basically I was saying straight people can't stick out their tongue, they can't do anything. What about, like, bi people? Well, she's a little bit bi, well, she's kind of attracted to the females. They say it's queer baiting, but it basically, to me, is saying, alright, if you're straight, you better never do anything, because if it might be considered, like, stick out your tongue, it could be queer baiting. And so is it saying, if you are going to do something, well, then you must act upon it? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Queerbaiting to me seems like another one of these random terms they came up with that is gonna be used so they can have some sort of grievance when it's convenient for them, and I say they, meaning the woke, and it's just this big mass of individual people, but frankly, it's an entity on its own. It's a hive mind when you put all these people together who individually are not all 100% woke, well, it creates this ideology, it creates the Borg. Now, I want to continue, though, with the idea of men and women are a little bit different, and there was this article that I read today. World Health Organization plan to stop women of childbearing age from drinking alcohol would be completely disproportionate, critics say. World Health Organization Alcohol Action Plan suggests women of childbearing age should not drink. Alcohol researcher Colin Angus says measure is disproportionate to their risk. Last night, the drinks industry slammed the proposal for being sexist. Alright, I don't agree with it. I'm going to say it right away. I think a woman has every right to drink, but the idea is, for years and years, years and years. For all last year, and we were told World Health Organization is the end-all be-all, that and the CDC. Whatever they say, goes. Now suddenly they come out and say, you know what? There's actually some risk, and although it might, you can argue, disproportionate, women face some risk from drinking alcohol, even if they're not pregnant, but if they were to become pregnant, so they should probably avoid it during childbearing age. You know what? I can read that and go, all right, if the World Health Organization is saying it, I don't agree, and I think a woman's still libertarian. My perspective is they have their choice. I'm not going to ever take that choice away. They can do what they want, but they should be aware now that it seems like there might be more risk, unfortunately, because women give birth. I'm sorry, birthing people give birth. But no, like, women give birth, and because of that, there's some risk. And although, you know what? Personally, go and drink. Like, the fact is, what is childbearing age? The right, I mean, if you're talking about truly young, fertile women, it's like 15 when they could potentially, I mean, no, in the sense that underage do not do anything, but biologically, technically childbearing. Okay, so then they turn 21 when alcohol becomes legal. Fine, so they have how many more years of being childbearers? 10 minimum? More, I mean, like, so what? Women can't drink alcohol till they're like 50 past menopause? It just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. You cannot say women shouldn't be able to drink. It's a little bit over the top. But I did say one thing, that women give birth. Well, I bring you this article. Chinese scientists get male rats to give birth by conjoining them with females and transplanting a uterus in vile Franken-science study. Alright, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I was talking about my perspective on how, although again, I will give anyone respect individually to their face, in my personal opinion, in a societal aspect, I do not personally think that a man can, even if they feel like they are a woman, I believe we all have unique personalities, but I don't believe a man is a woman or a woman is a man if they choose to be so. I think they have unique, more feminine or masculine personalities, and I think we're all unique, and it's our goal to figure out how our personalities and how what we're given in bodies, how we make that work in the world. But the the conversation I was having is basically, all right, men are going to be able to give birth. Like, what, like, I'm just like, they can't give uteruses to men. I'm just saying, like, that's not possible. As of right now, science cannot make it happen so a man can just get given a uterus and give birth. Well, looks like we're getting closer. That's why I bring this up, because I'll take it back. You know what? In whatever world we go into, I do want people to feel the most comfortable they possibly can. And if a transgender woman decides that they want to, in the future someday, maybe from this science that we're seeing now with these rats, maybe someday a man will be able to get a uterus put into his body and something could happen and maybe he could give birth. It'd be really, really crazy, but I don't see why it couldn't potentially be possible. I mean, the scientific advances that we've made in 100 years are incredible. Now, if you actually read some of the stuff here, they had to put two rats together because a female's blood had to be pumped into the man. It's like, there's a lot of stuff that went into making this actually work for the rats, but maybe in the future we'll get to a point where men and women are literally interchangeable and you just get to be born and then decide in the future what you actually want. I don't know if that's the world necessarily that I would want to live in, but who am I to decide which way the future turns? But I want to go to something a little bit more serious. Something that could impact all of us in a way that is not just women and femininity and gender roles, even though that does impact all of us. I want to talk about cybersecurity, war, and national security. Starting with this. Something's going on. UFO threaten national security, US politicians warn. So, you may know, in a couple of days, it's likely that we're going to be getting a report on all of the UFO knowledge that we have from the Pentagon. Now, there's been some preliminary stuff that's been coming out, pretty much saying that we don't know where they come from. Could be outer space. Maybe it's from another country in their technology. All we know is we don't really know how they work. They seem to break our physics. They can go in water, out of water. We have no vehicles that can go in and out of water like land or air and sea. We don't have, they're called transmedium. A medium is air or water. Trans meaning they can go into both. We don't have that kind of vehicle. Maybe we have a submarine that can, or a car that can go on like land and then boat, but we have nothing that's air and sea compatible. These things are. They break crazy speeds. What they do just doesn't work with our physics. And the reason I bring this up in terms of war and national security is we don't know what they are. If it is a foreign nation, this should be terrifying us because this is technology that breaks our understanding of physics. And frankly, if they can break that kind of physics, who knows what else they could possibly be doing. Now, I hope it's outer space. I've heard the stories that the aliens helped stop nuclear Armageddon one time. That'd be really, really cool. I have no proof for it. I like to believe it just because it's more fun and entertaining and frankly less scary than if it was a foreign nation, foreign adversary with technology that we can't even comprehend. Maybe the aliens will give it to us. I don't know. But if they're going to give it to us, we probably need to be peaceful, and these kinds of things aren't helping that. Senators draft a bill that would require many entities to report cyber breaches within 24 hours. The bill circulating in Washington, obtained by CNN, would apply the U.S. government agencies, as well as federal contractors and critical infrastructure owners and operators, such as businesses in the manufacturing, energy, and financial service sectors. Industry representatives and trade groups have already received copies of the discussion draft. The bill includes liability protections for companies that submit breach notification reports, which cybersecurity experts have said is critical to ensuring that businesses are not afraid to come forward to disclose breaches and to help the U.S. officials bolster the nation's cybersecurity. I bring this kind of article up because you probably remember we had some pretty serious cybersecurity hacks. The internet went down the other day. But more importantly, there was the Colonial Pipeline, the largest pipeline bringing moving gas in the United States, down. Can't remember the company's name, but it was one of the biggest meat processing plants in the world, down. In both ransomware attacks. Now, Biden decided to say to Putin, please don't do this, and gave him a list. We'll get to that video in a second. But this is not a good sign. USA is weak. We are getting attacked left and right with cybersecurity, and I think this is the kind of war you would see nowadays. I was talking about it the other day. You won't see people dropping bombs on frankly, the US will do it on smaller countries that can't fight back, but the US isn't going to bomb China or Russia, and Russia probably won't bomb the US or China, because these are world superpowers and they understand it's mutually assured destruction. You attack us, we wipe you out. Unfortunately, it's really, really scary. But that, at one point, was the best idea. Just if they can kill us, we can kill you. It's not really good, but that's the idea that the Cold War brought us. Mutually assured destruction. Now, it might just be, you shut down our electricity, we shut down your food processing. I don't think that would probably hurt more people than any sort of weapon attack on any city. Maybe not. Cities are millions of people congested into one small area, so actually a true awful nuke would be the most horrific thing since the first nukes. But cybersecurity is likely to be where we see the next form of actual war. Now, luckily we have the greatest president to ever exist, Joseph Biden, and he sternly gave Russia a list of things not to attack.
Cybersecurity. I talked about the proposition that certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack, period, by cyber or any other means. I gave them a list. If I'm not mistaken, if I don't have it in front of me, 16 specific entities. 16 defined as critical infrastructure.
There you go. He gave a list. Now, a couple things we need to think about here. One, does that mean everything not on the list is free reign? I would hope not. Two, does that mean if Russia, because that's who he was targeting it to, saying Russia, don't do this, if Russia was to attack something on that list, does that mean it's an act of war? Like, what goes on there? Is it? Would you actually act upon that? Like, if you're gonna give someone a list, if you're going to give someone boundaries, there needs to be repercussions. What is the point of a rule if there are no repercussions? I'll use a stupid example, but when I was working at a gym and we had a mask mandate, I had to tell the owner, look, we need to have a big sign that said if you're not going to cover your nose, and although I basically hated the masks, but we all had to follow this rule. And I said, if you're not going to cover your nose, we're going to have to ask you to leave. Because for the first few weeks when we reopened, we had no repercussions. We would go up to people, hey, would you please pull your mask up over your nose? Oh, sure. They would do it right in front of you, and you'd turn your back, and they'd pull it right back down. But the thing is, without any sort of actual consequences, people didn't care. And funny enough, when we actually started kicking people out for the day, we wouldn't end their memberships. We would just go, excuse me, but if you can't follow our simple rules, we're just going to have to ask you to leave and you can come back later. Fine. People realized, oh crap, I'm going to start wearing my mask because I don't want to get kicked out. Point being, without any sort of repercussions, rules don't matter. So if you're going to give Putin a list of 16 things not to attack, well, what's going to happen if he was to attack one of those 16 things? Also, the scary thing is, what if that list got leaked and say, China was to attack one of those 16 things? It's a cybersecurity attack or cyber attack. How do you know who it was? I don't really know if we can nail down exactly if it was Russia or not. I think it was accusations. Of course, Putin is denying them. Now, if it was him, I think he would opt out. Like, you would deny it. You're not going to say, oh, it was us. Yeah. He, of course, actually said that we are the worst cyber attackers in the world as United States. But the idea is, especially if that list gets out, any foreign nation could frame Russia as the aggressor, and suddenly are we going to World War III because someone else decided to do something. More stuff, though, because if Russia is our biggest threat, well, what about this? Taiwan reports largest daily incursion yet by Chinese Air Force. Top U.S. general addresses fears of China taking Taiwan. They're gonna do it. They've been doing beaching drills, they're invading their airspace, it's just inevitable. If you actually are someone who has been following this for years, like, you know it's going to happen. It's just they're waiting for the right opportune time, and frankly, it's going to probably be sometime in the next few years because Joseph Biden's the president. As long as he's president, America is weak and we will not do anything. Do you really think Donald Trump was the first person to send a U.S. representative to Taiwan in years? I think it was since the 70s. Do you really think that this would all be happening if he was president? No, because they understood, they being the Chinese Communist Party, if they were to do something stupid, they would be pissing off Trump, and that man, you don't want to piss him off. Do I think that he would have been the best wartime leader? No. Maybe he would have been worse than Joe Biden. I don't know. Maybe it would have been awful to have Trump be the leader and actually go to war. Maybe he was fine-ish as long as we weren't in war. I don't want to know what would have happened had he had to be the commander-in-chief in an actual World War III type scenario. But we might be entering that now with Joseph Biden. And frankly, I don't know if he's been any better either. I just hope that he has people around him that will be able to guide us through this mess okay. Continue on, though. So one thing if we go to war overseas, but, you know, we got our own problems here in cities right now. The police are leaving. So in Portland, I mean, what other city would it be happening to? Portland Police Rapid Response Team members leave team, remain in primary roles as employees. On June 16, 2021, Portland Police Bureau employees serving as members of the Rapid Response Team left their voluntary positions and no longer comprise a team. Its members were sworn employees of the Portland Police who served on RRT in addition to their daily assignment in the Bureau. Despite no longer serving on RRT, they will continue in their regular assignments. They were approximately 50 employees serving as RRT members. Alright, so there's still police there, but the Rapid Response Team, they're quitting because they recognize that they're not allowed to do their jobs anymore. The policies of these Democrats in Portland and these Democrat cities, Chicago, San Francisco, New York City, Los Angeles, they are resulting in more crime. I don't get, like, I've thought about this before, where it might be the case that gun control in major cities might be better than having an armed population. If it was going to work anywhere, it might be in densely populated areas. The problem is that gun control is becoming a federal thing where they want to do a sweeping ban over an entire country. And there's no reason why someone in rural Wyoming or rural Utah should have to follow the same gun laws as someone living in New York City or Los Angeles. Also, I don't even know if banning guns would work in these major cities, because you look at Chicago and New York City, where it's some of the hardest places to get weapons in the world, or in the United States, I should say, and does it really seem like they have less gun crime? Southside Chicago ain't that safe. I just think that the best solution would be more guns. But if we're not going to have that, well, maybe police would help? Who knows? Who knew this? Children are witnessing lewd acts, nudity, and drugs. Hundreds of Manhattan residents plead with NYPD to stop nightly depravity in Washington Square Park hours before revelers flock there once again to drink and smoke with no cops in sight. New York City is lawless. I get it. I don't really want people getting arrested for smoking a blunt. I think that would be a little bit ridiculous. But lewd acts, nudity, and drugs, there was a story about a man just masturbating in the middle of Times Square, which is even worse than Central Park. At least Central Park, you could maybe be hiding somewhere, under a rock or something. Times Square is literally the busiest place in New York City. And the man was just masturbating. People, these cities are falling apart. Cops aren't allowed to arrest anyone. If they arrest anyone, it's going to potentially lose them their jobs because it's going to be viewed as racist. I don't get how people can be watching their cities burn and sit there and think that it's the good policies and that the Republicans are the problem, or that they just don't leave already. You would think if this is what you're seeing every night and it's not getting better, you can plead all you want. It's getting worse. You've been pleading for months and months. You've been watching it happen. Has anything changed? No, the rhetoric has gotten worse, and the blame for the Republicans has just continued. And right on cue, for Republicans, crisis is the message as the outrage machine ramps up. How? This is from the New York Times. How? They're saying crisis is the message? Of course, there's crisis after crisis. We have a border crisis, COVID-19. We have an economic crisis looming. We have war potentially looming. We have all these crazy leftist ideas running around. And you know what? We do have crazy right-wing ideas running around, because who knew when the pendulum starts swinging one side, the other side is going to have to go crazily to the other. What we need is a moderate society where you're allowed, okay, we go a little bit left, and then the right goes, you know what about here? And it kind of, if you're going to teeter, you want to be teetering just here. What we're seeing, though, is the teetering is getting way wider. The average is still right here, but the distance, and so we have really, really far left and really, really far right. And it's not good to be seeing these kinds of ideas running around. This has happened. Weimar Germany, right before World War II. I really hope we don't get to anything like that, but the fourth turning might tell us that, every 80 years-ish, it seems like some crazy kind of conflict happens as the younger generation takes power from the older. I don't know. We'll see. Dramatic footage shows frantic struggle in police interview room as man, 27, arrested for beating his girlfriend, 2-year-old to death, tries to grab a detective's gun. He's in the interview room. So probably in the police station, and this man tries to grab a gun. Now, maybe he was just trying to commit suicide. Maybe he was just going to go boom and end his life because he didn't want to go to jail. Maybe he was just going to try to do a murder-suicide. Whatever it is. The fact that someone can be in the room with 2 cops and just do that, thinking this is a justifiable act. Now, again, I think he probably recognized that he was going to either get in trouble and maybe just end up killing himself. Who knows, because they were able to stop him, luckily. But the fact that it's even going on in the first place just shows that we have a society that's falling apart. So now, even if you do arrest someone, you have to be worried that in the interview room, they're going to just take your gun. And look at this. Who could have guessed? Most New York City Democratic voters want increased police presence as crime has surged 22%. Who would have thought that as crime is going up, people want police? Yet, you continue to take away the police's ability to do anything. I don't know what to tell you. To continue on, though, with the awful policies of the Democrats. Biden's death tax that would mean middle-class families inherit smaller estates and would break his promise to not hike rates for Americans making less than $400,000 a year. So, one of the biggest ways that Americans become middle class in this country, not rich, but just middle class, is home ownership. We are seeing BlackRock, these trillion-dollar giant investing firms, buying up hundreds of houses, entire neighborhoods at a time, for 22% over market value. That's not good. Meanwhile, now, say you actually have a house in your family, your parents own a house and they die. They leave it to you. Well, now they're going to take a crap ton of tax on that, because you don't deserve that. They need to take your wealth and redistribute it for equity reasons. Now, I do think that there, yes, are a lot of people who have a lot of wealth in their family, and there's a reason it only lasts in the family for a couple of generations, because typically, once that wealth is gone to like the third generation, the person doesn't know how to earn it. The person who has earned all that wealth that has been passed down has created some spoiled children, and now those spoiled children waste the money away. All I want to see is for people to be able to work and get to the middle class, to have upward mobility within class. Yet that is being stripped away from us day by day, and we are watching it happen. And the thing is, it's really hard to understand. You have to kind of get economics. You kind of have to read a whole lot and really listen and learn if you want to see how we are being screwed over. It starts a lot with student loans and just making it so we are basically living in debt for our entire lives, and we're never going to be able to repay it. I'm going to keep going, because they want the death tax. Well, what about this? Your money is going to be worth less, because although they've already printed, I believe it's been $12 trillion, they want $6 trillion more. The Democrats, not the Republicans, the Democrats. Who knows if it'll actually go through, but $6 trillion more. I think it was like 2010, maybe it was 2015, but our GDP, our entire GDP of the country, everything that we do, like all the transactions that are going on, it was about like 18 trillion a year or something like that. It wasn't, I mean, it was a crap ton of money. It was in the trillions, but say like 25 trillion. We'll go high. You know what, let's say it was 30 trillion. That'd be crazy. In 1 year, in really 5 months, or 6 months, Joe Biden has printed about half of our country's GDP. It is not sustainable. People don't get it. People see, oh, 6 trillion, it's going to be coming to me. It's coming to down to all. Like, it seems good. That's the thing, is the Democrats, all of these plans seem like they're for really good reasons. But you, if you support these, probably don't understand economics enough to realize that what's actually going on is as they print money and increase the money supply, which is unfathomably large compared to what it used to be just a year ago, when you increase the money supply, the value of each dollar goes down. Think about it like this. What is it? There was a meme. Monkey have 1 banana. Banana worth a lot. Another monkey come with 1,000,000 bananas. Banana worth nothing. Yes, that's basically how it works. When you have 1 banana, everyone wants to fight over the 1 banana. When someone finds 1,000,000 bananas, they just monkey found banana printer. Banana printer went burr, and now bananas are galore. You know what? The monkey figured out how to plant the banana. We'll go biologically accurate. He figured out how to farm, just like we did. And now, because he was very skillful, he runs a monopoly on bananas, and he makes all the profit, because this monkey decided that he was going to be the only monkey who knew how to grow bananas, and he supplies all the bananas for every monkey. Okay, really stupid analogy. Idea being, though, either you have a monopoly of people who can print the bananas, and they'll stay in power forever, or we all figure out how to go and harvest bananas, and we just have a well-functioning economy. Maybe I go get bananas and you and go get mangoes, and I trade 2 bananas for your 1 mango, because mangoes are even harder to get than bananas. Sometimes my mind just does crazy things. This is a story, though, that I want to quickly touch upon, because I think it's important. Democrats want JP Morgan to refund COVID-era overdraft fees and scrap them forever. Now, these are the kinds of stories where I do believe the Democrats and the liberals serve a purpose for fighting for the little guy. A lot of the awful policies, they're trying to genuinely help. They are the party of empathy. And it's not that Republicans lack empathy or conservatives, but I think it's very much just one of the highest traits in liberals is they feel bad and they want to come up with policies that help solve problems for people. While Republicans tend to go, you know what, I'll help guide you to solving the problem, but a lot of times you're the one responsible for solving your own problem. Now, in the middle of a pandemic, if you had to take money over what you could have had in your bank account and had an overdraft fee, I don't know if a pandemic is the right time to say, you know, we're going to charge you $50 extra because you have to take extra money out of your account. No. I think you should charge people and basically say, all right, you're in debt, you had to take $5,000 more than what you actually had in your account. I get it. If you're going to loan someone money, and that is kind of what the bank is doing, they're saying, all right, we're going to give you this $5,000 even though you don't have it. You kind of want something back, but it was the middle of a pandemic. But to scrap them forever, I think is a little bit much. But what about this one? Biden has now canceled $3 billion of student loans. All right. That's very, very minuscule. I believe the amount of student loans is in the trillions, so $3 billion is nothing compared to the amount of actual money and debt that is out there held by students. But this, in my eyes, is just, again, making sure that your money and your choices are not as valuable. He is bailing out the smart, I shouldn't say the smartest, but the people who chose to go to school, spend all the money, and should be getting the highest paying jobs in the country, while farmers and other people who don't go to college are going to be having either, again, money has to be printed or they'll have to tax for that $3 billion. So their money, either they're paying it more in taxes or it becomes less valuable because they had to print it. So whatever it is, you who didn't go to college is paying for someone else's college now. These policies will not work. But people are quitting their jobs at record rates, so it's actually good. And unemployment applications arise from a pandemic low. It's interesting how both these articles were written by the same person. The economy is strengthening accordingly, but unemployment applications rise from, okay, I'm sure they didn't hit a low, they rise from the pandemic low. So unemployment's going up, and people are quitting jobs more. Okay, that makes sense. People quit jobs, unemployment goes up. I don't get how it's a good thing for the economy when people are quitting jobs. They don't want to work because you're giving people money for free. I mean, I quit my job because I wanted to talk about this stuff, and I really hope it works someday. I want to start a career. But people are quitting. I don't get how these things are good for the economy when you watch things like inflation is going up and the Fed is hiking rates. Your money is going to be worth nothing. You will not be able to buy a house. You'll be able to rent from BlackRock. You'll live under your BlackRock lords, and you'll own nothing. You'll be happy. It is the Great Reset. It's happening in front of our eyes. I'm 23 years old, and I'm trying to warn people about it now because, unfortunately, I'm going to be the one who has to live for another 50 to 100 years in whatever world is created. Please wake up, people. Go and don't get woke, but be awokened to something else that's going on. Stop listening to what the mainstream media and the corporate media is telling you. Do your own research. Listen to them. I'm listening to them and reading them. They serve a purpose, but you really have to use your brain and realize that, you know what, if you're going to sit there and play video games all day and do nothing with your life and just waste it, and you know what, I don't think it's doing nothing, but if you're going to play video games all day, maybe you should outsource your political opinions to someone who is researching all day, every day, not just me, but other people too, and really go and listen to other people. But if you don't do the research, what makes you then suddenly think that you're some sort of expert when it comes to voting day? I want to finish up with this section here. And it's going to be a little bit different. It's not quite as political. It's more cultural and societal effects. Because I saw this stuff right here. These two stories. On top, they're saying how apparently white people talking is pretty much racist. White people on social media and in real life regularly appropriate African American vernacular English, AAVE, like slay and sis without thinking, and some of these phrases come directly from black LGBTQ community. Experts say this perpetuates racism, erases black contributions, and fuels cultural misunderstandings. Simply put, it's black linguistic appropriation. Okay, white people, be quiet. I get there's a difference between, like, someone appropriating and someone appreciating, but it's language. The internet has done this to us. It used to be that you would have slang in the inner city, and then you would go to a suburb, and yes, you would have two, frankly, different kinds of English being spoken. But now that the internet has given us basically a more unified culture, I think when it comes to like music, because think about all kids listen to is rap, or maybe not all kids listen to, but it's a lot of rap, it's a lot of the same stuff. Billie Eilish is huge, but when you have the internet make the town square just social media and they all see the same thing, yeah, language is going to be overlapping. And it's not bad if someone who's white uses words. We have to get past the idea that someone saying cis or slay is racist. I'm sorry, it is ridiculous. But what about this story? How to set boundaries when you're overwhelmed by overshares. With the pandemic fading, people may unload more emotional baggage than you're ready to handle. People, like, I swear this entire thing is, like, all this whole movement is just making people want to be quiet, STFU, and say nothing ever. The only way to never be canceled is to never say anything at all. Because that was the only way to risk offending no one ever. Anything you say is probably going to offend someone. So, just don't say anything. Don't overshare, because you might, be putting someone, making them uncomfortable. They might not want to hear it. Don't say something like cis or slay. It might be racist. What if you don't know? What if you just heard a word? What if someone else told you that word? And then you just go and use it, and now suddenly you're losing your job because apparently it was coming from black LGBTQ community. Talking fast. I don't know, folks. I just want to tell you, you should wake up now before it's too late. I have this final tweet to show you because it relates to the idea of being silent. My sister asked me today, is it normal for people to prefer important conversations on text rather than on call or in person? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how younger generations really don't enjoy dealing with raw human emotion. As you can see, I retweeted this. I agree. I think that raw human emotion is really difficult for people. I mean, it's not easy for anyone. I think back in that, I was watching Dexter the other day, and a character gave his phone number to a girl, and I think he said one wrong thing, and suddenly he didn't get a call back. He thought he blew it. And it really reminded me to today when someone sends a text and it takes them 2 hours before they get a response, and they were like, oh my god, I must have blown it with the girl or guy. It's the same kind of emotions. It's never been easy to deal with raw human emotion. But yes, I agree that I think a lot of young people nowadays just don't even know how. They've never had to talk and deal with it. They don't know if it's supposed to be done via text or on call or in person. And I think sometimes it just happens and they explode because they don't know how to deal with it. I don't know what the solution is. All these problems are really, really tough. But I like talking about them because I just love learning about the societal problems. And frankly, learning about what's going on in society and the problems that I see help me learn my morals and my path. I talked about that at the beginning, where we don't have a path, and people used to get it from religion. But if you don't have a path, I think a good way to go is go online a lot. Look at all the stuff that you go, this doesn't make sense. Well, this is dumb. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. And then follow your moral path. Figure out what you see and what you think is wrong and do the opposite of it. Simple as that. Maybe not the exact opposite, but whatever. My name is Bailey, aka the Progressive Conservative. I'm done for today. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye, and I'll see you later.